one of the operation migration groups, or is it a naturally occurring one?
No, it's not a naturally occurring flock. It's what's called a resident flock. See, the governing body for this whole thing is the Whooping Crane Recovery Team. That's 5 Canadians and 5 Americans who recommended we start additional populations. But back in 1993, there was no method of making a bird migratory. My partner Bill Lishman and I did the first migration with geese back then, but there was no method of making these birds migratory. And they had enough success in the breeding facilities like Patuxent to start releasing birds. So they picked the Kissimmee Prairie because they knew the birds could live there all year long. And those birds became resident. That typical example, if you don't show a bird a migration route, it will not migrate. So they stayed out there all year long. Now the problem with that, of course, is they have a high impact on their environment when they're there 12 months a year. And they get very used to their environment, so they tend to get a little tame. And the big problem that happened with this project was that we had flood in Florida for a long time, and a lot of the habitat they were using all dried up. And then, of course, you've got a lot of development pressure in Florida. So they faced a lot of challenges, and that population got up to 97 birds at one point. But it's now dropped to, I think, about 35 birds. They have low productivity and high mortality, and it's not working. So we learned a tremendous amount from that. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission did just a heroic effort to make it work, but there were just a lot of challenges ahead of them. They kind of couldn't work. So the recovery team has asked for 3 populations. You have the naturally occurring flock coming from northern Canada to Texas. You have this population between Wisconsin and Florida, and you had the resident population in Florida. Now with that one not working, there is a possibility we're going to need a 3rd population. And that might be somewhere from Minnesota to Louisiana, but not until this one is complete and successful.
How many go down to Texas?
Well, there are 275 birds in that flock right about now, with an awful lot of young. They do the count they do a spring count, a nesting count in Wood Buffalo National Park from the air, and then they do a midsummer count, and they count the number of twins and surviving birds. Then they try to do a late season count, but they don't often get that done. Then the birds migrate down through, and then they start doing counts in Texas.
Did the hurricane over there bother them as far south?
As far as I know, there was no mortality or no damage, and their habitat is still intact, so no.
They live in cabins. How many birds are in cabins?
Well, that's the other half of our group. We brought down 14 birds, and we'll divide it.
I mean, the whole population.
Oh, we're at 72 plus these 7. They're not released. They're not counted until they're released. So we have 73 plus 14. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Now our target is 125 individuals and 25 breeding pairs. Now they don't breed until they're 5 years old successfully. They start when they're 3. So it's going to take some time to get that. We don't have that many breeding pairs yet. As you've probably heard, we have some breeding difficulties. We've only had 1 wild hatch chick so far. But that 1 wild hatch chick was the first chick in the U.S., in that area of the U.S. since 1878. So it's pretty cool. So, pardon me? Oh, yes, they do, but there is divorce. How tough is it? It's always hard. Every year it takes us about 23 or 24 days of flying to get down here. We make about 23 or 24 stops. I'm not even sure what it is yet, but it takes every year. It takes longer to get those 23 days. Now so far it's 81 or 82 days. 3 months today. 3 months today. So it's a problem, and that's why we changed the migration route. Our original route took us down through the mountains in Kentucky and Tennessee. We would always get stuck on those mountains. Plus, it was very dangerous for the pilots to fly over the ridges. You know, when you get wind that goes over a mountain, it tends to roll on the backside, and you get what's called mechanical turbulence. And even on light conditions, it can get pretty rough for an airplane that weighs 350 pounds. And so, and on top of that, if we did lose a bird, it was difficult to find. There were rivers there where you know the bridge is 20 miles away, and the bird would go back and forth across the bridge, making the tracker drive like this. And that was very frustrating for Brian, who was tracking a lot. But so we decided to change the route, and we had some funding. We're very pleased with our funder, who provided $12,000 to lay the route out. And Beverly and Brooke laid it out last year. Beverly has her own Cessna 182, so they flew it 4 times, I believe. and then drove it and several times and laid it all out, and this is the first time we've used it, and we're very pleased that. So it's worked beautifully so far. We're really pleased, and you know, it hasn't been much faster, a little faster, but not much, but it has been a lot safer for the pilots. You know, we're flying over open territory, and if something happens, we can find a field easily. In fact, Brooke said this morning the worst part is coming here, because from here to our last site is solid trees. There's no place to go. So, but that's the least of our challenges now. So, yeah, yes.
I think, Liz, somebody wrote on the blog about the eagle predation on one of the birds. Are you worried about that down here? 'Cause, alligators notwithstanding, the eagle's a little bit more nimble.
Well, I'm not going to do the eagle question. I'm going to make Bev do the eagle question. All right, that's a very good question, and it's been open for a lot of discussion whether eagles really will predate the cranes. Now, golden eagles will out west. Bald eagles tend to eat more fish and carrion, so I'm really not too concerned about the bald eagles unless one of our birds is already dead, then that's the least of our issues. So I would be more worried about a great horned owl taking one of our birds when it's roosting, because owls will definitely do that, but the eagles, bobcats are our #1 concern down here. This time of year, the alligators are pretty sleepy, so again, not too worried about the gators, and I don't think the hogs are going to cause us too much trouble either, but the bobcats would be the issue.
I should also say that the indication that it was an eagle attack was just a preliminary indication in the field. The biologist that found the bird made that suggestion. It wasn't official, and the vets have said it looks more like a bobcat attack to them. So that's not, we don't know whether it's eagle or not. I can tell you, though, that there was a study done out west with Kent Clegg did it, and he led some sandhill cranes down from Idaho down into Bosque del Apache in New Mexico, and he was leading sandhills, and he had golden eagles take sandhills right out of the air, right from behind his airplane. So yeah, you know, as Bev says, that's a golden. We don't get that many goldens down here, so. I can tell you another story, funny story. This was a couple of years ago. We were training at Necedah, and the birds were very young. And we have a lot of bald eagles at Necedah, and as Bev says, they're fish eaters, so it's not an issue. But we were circling around, and we were coming back towards the pen, and we were only maybe 100 feet up. And we're heading back towards the pen slow, and there was 5 birds on the wing, and there was a muskrat lodge, which is like a hump in the water, and there was a bald eagle sitting on it with a fish. And as we flew over it, it crouched like this, and the 5 birds on the wings left the wing and went down right at him with legs forward like this until the bald eagle went like that. And they come back up and joined the wing and landed. So it's pretty amazing sight. It was pretty wild. And we've seen similar things we had sandhills in South Carolina once, and they were out in the middle of the field. We were watching them, and there was a bobcat that was skulking across the way, you know, towards them, and they all formed a basic mass and chased the bobcat. Safety in numbers. So they have that kind of group defense thing. It's kind of neat. Yes?